right, you maggots, listen up. Last night I had trouble sleeping. My mind was racing. I realized a couple things with this radio. Uh, this side, this capacitor, remember I said it was a bus system? They actually took the lead from this capacitor and ran it down here and tied it to the other capacitor. And then they just took the fine wire from the coil and wrapped it around. It's really bogus, man. I'm telling you, this thing, it's crap. But anyway, inside, remember I told you there's a cutout here, and it creates a tang. You have to go inside with a small screwdriver and get between the capacitor and the tang and pry it out, and hopefully the capacitor comes out. Now the capacitor can be stuck from wax. All right, let's see if this one comes out. I just bent this. All right, I want to go out of focus. All right, it seems to be moving pretty good. All right, let me just give it the oil. All right, so now you can see, can you? Yeah, you can sort of see down into that hole. Let me make sure it's in focus. Now, this is a 820 picofarad cap. This is IF number 1. It's the small coil, I believe, that comes off the plate, maybe of the mixer. I don't know, but anyway, it's the low impedance. It's got few turns, but a large capacitor. So when you order the 820 picofarads, watch out. Here's what happens. Just take 820 picofarad as an example, which is actually in this radio. 820 picofarads. Sometimes it says 820 on it. Sometimes it says 821, which means 10. So you got 82, 10, 820. Then you need 82 picofarads for this radio, and you might get ones that say 820, and they're 820. You can actually tell by the size, but I just wanted to warn you that, because you could have already recapped your IF section and noticed it didn't work right because you got the wrong value in there. Possibly the vendor sent you the wrong value. You ordered the wrong value. But I just want to keep you posted on what I go through, because I could make this seem real simple and tell you guys what a great radio to work on, what a challenge, and get you to get your ego to get you sucked in. Now, here's the capacitor. All right, let me get in and focus here. All right, notice the way I got the wires bent. It becomes an axial capacitor. See the way the wire comes down, round, and out the edge? And that, after I cut it short, I took a file, and I got that file as a point. So when I have to slide the wire over that, it'll go easier. All right? Can you follow that? These are the things you got to do to keep your sanity. Now, before you put it back in, you put it this way, in that tang, and you put it in the hot dog bun. All right, let me show you the hot dog bun. All right, this is a piece of bicycle tubing. And now the capacitor, let me do it a little bit better. The capacitor is in there like a hot dog bun. Now, I might not be able to get this on camera to go in there, but in other words, I'm gonna have to put the hot dog bun in first. All right, we're putting the hot dog bun in first. We're centering it. And then we're going to put this capacitor in there. Leads facing down. And notice it's staying in the midair. That's because it's being held in by the tang. Now you want to touch this up a little better. Get the capacitor centered better. Get the hot dog bun centered better. And then go in with a long nose pliers and squeeze that tang in to hold it in position while you solder. I just wanted to do a quick update. Let me see if it stayed in focus. How I actually do it, because this radio is tough, and if you order the wrong capacitors and put them in there, in your mind you got the right capacitors in there. But I want to warn you, just using the 820 picofarad, which on this first IF coil, it uses a very small coil and uses a large amount of capacitance to resonate at 455. That's to lower the impedance, so I think it comes off the plate of the tube. But earlier radios, the IF cans, Even these crappy ones are designed to get the most Q and oomph out of the radio. Because when they come out with the tubes back then, they didn't have the greatest amount of gain. And the engineers were a little bit sharper than later on. Later on, they were just working to make the radio cheaper, especially what I call it Hellcrapper radios. They're just junk. All right, now this thing is a poorly designed piece of junk. Look up the history of this guy. He was an industrial designer, the guy that designed this thing, and he did automobiles, cigarette packages. I think he did some trains for Pennsylvania Railroad. Go read up on the guy. So in other words, the outside of this radio makes this thing a collectible. So any version of it on eBay is almost $400. Now I saw this for $200, and then they were shipping. And I kept looking at the pictures, and I'm like, this thing isn't rusted, this thing. But see, even though I got a radio is in really good shape, the radio itself to rebuild is a pain in the ass. And then what really comes home to bear for me is I don't like the people that hang in conferences that give out bad information. And nobody, one guy sort of hinted, maybe the IF can capacitors would be bad. Well, if the capacitors are bad in the BFO and they're bad in the discriminator, it's the same type of capacitors. Why wouldn't they also be leaky and bad in the IF cans? Now, one guy will jump in from the conference and says, all you gotta do is make sure you get a good peak or a null on the IF can. Well, that's not true. If you got a leaky capacitor, you'll still get a peak or a null, whatever you want to call it. What you're doing is you're losing amplitude through the leaky capacitor. The capacitor still resonates with the coil, but some of the electrons are going through the capacitor because it's got silver mica disease. And it doesn't matter if they're in the can or in the radio. Oh, and there's some on the bottom of the radio that I ordered I have to change. So this radio is basically an AM radio and an FM radio. The IF cans are for both have two separate IF can systems in each one, an AM and an FM. The front end, they share the same switch, the band switch, but basically you got an AM and an FM radio in this, and most of the parts don't overlap. And the capacitors for the AM broadcast band are like 0.01s, to recap it, 0.01s, 0.02s, and 0.05s. And then the FM has all these picofarad ones. And when you start looking for them around and you go to click on it and buy it, it's out of stock. And I went through 6 different vendors in order to get the capacitors. And the one I ordered the earliest, I think it's a 47 picofarad. There's a whole crap load of them in the IFs. And that guy, he waited almost 4 days to ship it to me. It's in the mail. So what I did to myself, I made a pact with myself today to just do this real quick video, just showing you how that capacitor sits in that piece of rubber tubing from it's an inner tube, and it sits in there, and then you got to squeeze the clamp in. The end leads on the capacitor. You want to file them down to provide a point, so when you heat up this wire that's got loops on it, it just slide right over. That's it for me. I'm not touching this radio. I don't know for the rest of the weekend, because don't forget there's capacitors down at the bottom of each IF can, and you know, you can do the top ones, but then you got to do it's a nightmare. I can't say for sure this is the hardest radio to rebuild. There's variables. In other words, somebody could get a Hellcrappers radio, an S40 that's been sitting in water for 3 years, and he can rebuild it and rewind the IF coils or whatever, and then say this is the hardest radio, you know. But as far as if there's nothing wrong with the radio except the caps, I would say this is one of the hardest ones, because you got capacitors for both the AM broadcast and the FM that have to be done. See, I recapped all the big caps, the 0.01s, the 0.02s, the 0.05s, the like 25 microfarads in the audio section, the 30s or 40s in the power supply section. I redid that. I didn't restuff the can. I put some terminals in there, and I put my capacitors on the terminals real nice. I put the capacitor, my capacitors and terminals in the same spot where the old capacitor was. I used the same wires. So if somebody comes along and wants to drop a twist cap in there, they can do it. See, I always try to leave the original, the radio original. I'm starting to misspeak. You notice that they're picking on Biden and Trump for misspeaking. When you're a certain age, man, you say the most weirdest words because you can't think of the word you want. Now, the other day I was trying to think of the word fire pit. We had a neighbor that had a really bad problem with a lawsuit over a fire pit, and I couldn't think of the word. I was trying to say to the person. The person wasn't following me anyway. But I just wanted to show you, how that cap goes back in there, the new cap, and I wanted to warn you about the values. There's several different values in these IF cans. They're changing the impedance as they go across. And the first IF and the third IF are different. The IF2 is more, it makes more sense when you look at the values. But that's what they're doing. They're coming off a tube, and they got the impedance just right so they can get the most Q, the most oomph. Then it goes through an amplifier into the second IF, and then the third, and then over into I believe the detector circuit. And then in the FM, it would be the discriminator circuit, detector circuit. But yeah, I just want to show you again, you really be prepared. I really warned you. I think that's it for a while. All right, that's it.